My name is Mirandi Gomez, and I'll be reviewing Appetite for America, written by Stephen Fried, as well as Harvey Girls, Opportunity Bound, produced by Katrina Parks. Fred Harvey was an entrepreneur, restaurateur, showman, and chief marketer. He's famous for starting the Harvey House and for introducing the country to the famous Harvey Girl.
In the book, Stephen Fried presents a really balanced view of Fred Harvey and gives us some insight into his potential motivations for starting Harvey House. First of all, he was an English immigrant. He moved to the United States trying to provide for his family, got an opportunity where he rode the railroads. And so as the railroads expanded, the Topeka, Atchison, and Santa Fe, he actually was involved in sales. And through his travels, realized that it was not the most conducive traveling arrangements. He was often ill and having to eat the food on a train where he got very little time to himself and the quality was very poor. He realized that there was money to be made. And so he partnered with an individual to actually start Harvey Houses. The interesting thing that Stephen Fried tries to entice the reader to understand is that there were really two main motivations for Fred Harvey. Number one, his father had several failed businesses in England and actually had to go to debtor's court. So he was very motivated to always be able to provide for his family and to not be poor, which is very different than trying to achieve success and be rich. The other thing that motivated him was the fact that he lost his first wife and children. And Stephen, I think, tries to paint a picture of a grieving man who is trying to escape his demons. And so it's portrayed in the book, not overtly, but certainly with subtle language, and have additional children, including Ford Harvey, who actually took over the business when he was a young man from Fred because Fred became too ill, and actually is credited with quite a few of the advances for the. You also get a good sense in reading the book of what it was like to be a new settler in the Old West, so to speak. The railroads were expanding, specifically the Santa Fe into the New Mexico, Arizona area, and that's really where the new frontier was expanding, and more people were being brought there. Now, an interesting fact about Fred Harvey is that he saw an opportunity to make the environment where people eat more pleasant. And one of those pleasantries was the Harvey Girls. And this is where we step into more of what the Harvey Girls Opportunity Bound is about. It's specifically about the women that were recruited and what work they had to do. Now, it's been noted that the outfits were conservative by today's standards, but were cut to accentuate the female form. Single women were also recruited from larger cities in Kansas and asked to move to the Southwest. Many of these women met men that they worked with or were around and married, and then they were summarily fired, which again is something that we don't quite appreciate in modern day. However, we have to look at this in the context of the time. Women were not afforded many opportunities. They had the opportunity to marry and to have children, and if their husband decided to move, then they could move with them. Fred Harvey presented these young women with an opportunity for adventure and to support themselves and to have a life unlike their mothers or grandmothers were ever able to. So in looking at the Harvey Girls and listening to the interviews with the women who are now grandmothers themselves, they saw it as opportunity. They didn't see it as exploitation. Same as with the Native Americans who were introduced to trade in some of the stopping places along the Santa Fe Railroad. Fred Harvey also introduced dining cars, which actually was competition for himself and the Harvey houses, but he employed young African American men because they were viewed as less threatening. But it still afforded those men opportunities that they would not have otherwise had. They were allowed to see the country. there was still prejudice, there was still sexism, but again, we have to look at it in the context of the time.